Hi there. Welcome to another talk. And this talk is going to be about solitude. The picture at the start, the energies, the chakras, is symbolic of what I'm speaking about, because in this path of mine, I was saying to my dad the other day, that I've spent, pretty much, all my life, being alone for large periods, being in solitude. When I was a kid growing up, I was really the loner, and my parents done psychic shows, so they were really busy doing that, but I was on my own for large periods, and I didn't really fit in at school, didn't really connect with my parents, I could say, much. And so what that leaves you with, like my dad, like I was saying to my dad the other day as well, that you don't have to be alone to be alone. Being alone isn't being alone. Being alone is when you feel alone, when you are alone, when you really, you could be with someone, for example, yet feel like there's no connection there. And that's what it really is to be alone. And ultimately, this alone thing, like at night time, I go to my room all by myself. And I have the candles on. Before I go to sleep, I like to have it on until the tea light candles go out, and then I go to bed. But this has always been the case. But what I'm getting at is that if you watch anyone, after my unexpected spiritual awakening, I started watching people on YouTube to find out about what I was going through, and what I discovered is pretty much everyone that has a spiritual awakening, they're all alone. My mum said the other day, she says, there was a study done that said that people alone have got psychological problems. No, they don't have psychological problems. The psychological problems would have been there anyway. It's like people blame alcohol, they blame drugs, they blame so many things, the narcissistic partner. But it's actually ourselves that is the problem. We're always looking to be the victim, right, and play the victim card, but never blame ourselves. This is one of the things that the awakening did for me. Is I realized that I created my own reality. All of a sudden, you've got this shift of consciousness. You're now aware that you're creating it all. And you stop being a victim, and it transforms your life. And now I haven't had depression for nearly 5 years, and that, to some, that might not be a big thing, but to me, to someone that was depressed all their life until the age of 28, that is a massive thing. My mum even said the other day, she says, you were on the road to suicide. And yeah, this spiritual awakening happened. I sat down one day, I didn't know anything about this stuff, and I had enough. And it was so authentic that it manifested this awakening coming through me. But I was alone when the awakening happened. I was on my own. And my dad said the other day, like I said earlier in the video, you're around family. No, alone for large periods. If you look at my whole life from childhood to now, even now, alone for large periods. And what that does is, Eckhart Tolle speaks about it, and what it actually does is, when you're alone for large periods, Eckhart Tolle's another one, said he was on his own for large periods, solitude. When you're alone for large periods, what it leads to is it leads to presence. It leads to you being present. Once you're present, That's what Eckhart Tolle talks about, and that's when the chances are you can spiritually awaken it, because once you're present, you start to naturally meditate. And you start to go into this transcendental state, and that's when you can start awakening. And this can bring on an awakening. And it obviously did, because I was on my own, and I've not seen one person that's had a spiritual awakening that has actually said, "Oh, I wasn't alone." They're all in solitude. And this is the thing, and this has been my whole life, and I was trying to explain to my dad the other day about the anxiety that we feel alone. And when people feel that, what you feel when you're on your own is your own energy. Everything that you feel when you're sitting by yourself is your own energy. That is what you're feeling. Like, you know, there's some parents were saying to me the other day, "Oh, you don't like being alone." Well, they don't know me very well. I said, "You mustn't know me very well then." Because that is, if you can't accept being alone, you can't have an awakening. Because a spiritual awakening is a deep, authentic thing that is within everyone. And it only happened to me once it was like a moment of acceptance of what was. But an authenticness to change as well. But it's like you've got to, almost like become oneness with what is. That's actually a form of meditation as well. But that's when I had the awakening. I remember it very clearly. I sat down but the feeling was, I've had enough. But you've become oneness with this. And this is the all that is. And once I let go of the external things and just went with what is, became oneness with it, I started going through the awakening. Because what you've become oneness, what you've aligned with there, or aligning with, is the infinite all. The infinite all that is. And that's why, like people like Eckhart Tolle say that in presence the chances are you can manifest a spiritual awakening. Because once it's like when I had the awakening, it was like, it was a case of just having enough, but almost like opening your heart to what is. And what is you. Because you manifest, everything, nothing has to be the beginning of all things, and nothingness is infinite, the infinite all. And that's, so you are this. And that's how after that point of the spiritual awakening, once you're going through the process of awakening, you're interacting with the all that is, and that's why you're getting all this knowledge, because you're tapping into the one infinity that is. But it manifested from being alone. And if you come into the world alone, you're going to die alone. You're going to be alone at some stage anyway. But people like my mum saying to me, "Oh, that can bring on mental problems." No, it's not. The people that have got mental problems for whatever reason they think, that's a problem within them. Like I said earlier, the problem with us is we play the victim card. And if we want to spiritually awaken and align our chakras, Kundalini, Tantra, all that kind of stuff, it's very simple. You let go of blaming things. You let go of external things that you're blaming for your situation. Like I did in my unexpected spiritual awakening. It was unexpected because I didn't know I was going to do that at that moment and awaken myself. I didn't know before that moment that was going to happen. But once you start, it's the awakening came from the dark, the depression. Excuse me. And then it led to that moment of just having it right. I've had it, and it was such an authentic power that I awakened. And then I started to become, before then I was alone for large periods, and I know that everything in the past does lead to where you are now. So everything in my past led to the awakening. So when you think of it like that, it's all synchronistic and perfect. But yeah, the power is not in just being alone, because you're always alone. You got to realize that there's only you in the dream. This is a dream, because if everything comes from nothing, you can't exist, so it's got to be a dream. So therefore, all is you in the dream, right? If there's one nothing, one forever, you're it. That means everything is you. That means that there's no other. So you're always on your own, whether you think it or not. Because if you think of it rationally, nothingness, one infinity, you're it. So all is just you. That's the thing. And but it's our perceptions. This is why people feel alone, because they have a perception that tells them, I'm not alone when people are around me. I know I'm alone, but it's a perceptual state. In that spiritual awakening, what happened is my perception and my consciousness shifted to a higher dimension, to what they call the fifth dimension. And you can do that right now, because everything comes from your perceptions. Your perceptual state of yourself determines your perceptual state of reality. So that's why people feel bad when they're alone, because they're perceiving them to have this situation where they're actually alone, and when people are around them, they're not. And so they want to run from that. But that energy of being alone, that anxiety was always there, but you perceived it not to be there, for you didn't feel it. You see, and when you look at it like this, you see that perception can be tricky. It can trick you. And this is ultimately, when you realize this, you then go on this path, as I've been on, of realizing there's a conspiracy going on here to mold perceptions. But back to the being alone thing, yeah, that is the power. If you can't be alone, then you don't know who you are. And like I say, the anxiety that one feels alone when they don't like being alone, that is your own energy. So that bad feelings you've got is your inner problems. You see? You can't spiritually awaken unless you're alone. That's why people travel all across the world and they'll go to some spiritual teacher, say in India, and they'll say, you must meditate, be alone and meditate for large periods. You see? But yes, regarding my path, I was alone for large periods all through my life. And always being the outcast. And that's really what it is to be alone. To be alone is to be the outcast. Is to feel like the outcast. That's when you're truly alone. Right? It's not a situation where you are alone on your own, but it's to be the outcast. You could be in a relationship, but if you feel you don't have a connection with that person, that's what it's like to be truly alone. But that is what led to my awakening. Not having a bond with your parents, not having a bond with children, not really feeling you've got this connection with anybody. And it forced me to look within myself. And it forces you to go deep within yourself. And that's when you connect with the soul. And that's when you start going through the spiritual awakening. But I'm just going to leave it there. For latest stuff by me, updates, talks like this, news, I have a website. My website address is www.lovelightfamily.com. Thank you for watching and listening to my talks.